You know that sound? That specific, deafening silence that happens right after a debit card gets declined at the grocery store? It's not actually silent, right? There's the beeping, the murmuring, the soccer mom behind you sighing because she just wants to buy her organic kale and get out of there. But inside your head, it's dead silent. It's just the sound of your own heart stopping. We've all been there. Look, I've been there. You're standing there, sweating, frantically trying to transfer $14 from your savings account, which, let's be honest, is just a parking lot for rent money, into your checking account, hoping the app loads before you die of shame. That right there, that is life in survival mode. That is what it feels like when you have zero margin for error. You are operating on pure cortisol. You're one flat tire away from ruin. One unexpected dental bill away from selling a kidney. Most people think the escape hatch from that misery is $1 million. They think, if I just win the lottery, or if I just make 6 figures, I'll be fine. But they're wrong. The magic number isn't $1 million. It's not even 100,000. It's $10,000. Seriously, 10 grand. That is the holy grail. And I'm going to tell you why. Because trust me, everything, and I mean literally the entire chemical structure of your brain, changes after you save that first 10,000. I'm Eli. We talk about finance here because the American education system apparently thought it was more important to teach you how to square dance than how to understand compound interest or avoid predatory loans. So, let's fix that. Today, we are talking about the first 5 figures, the hardest money you will ever save in your life. Now look, if you're broke right now, $10,000 probably sounds like a mountain, right? It sounds impossible. It might as well be $1 billion. But psychologically, crossing that line is the difference between drowning in the middle of the ocean and finally standing on solid ground. Let's talk about how poor people think. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, when you are broke, your brain physically cannot process the future. It's a survival mechanism. You are trapped in the now. When you have no savings, you aren't living life. You're just putting out fires. Your brain is constantly scanning for threats. Can I pay rent? What was that noise the car made? Do I have enough gas to get to work? You have what psychologists call a bandwidth tax. You are so busy doing the math on buying a $5 sandwich that you literally do not have the IQ points left over to plan for next year. You're trapped in a cycle of reactive thinking. I remember my life before 10,000. I call it the dark ages. I drove this beat-up 2008 sedan. It smelled like burnt oil and fear. Every single morning, I'd turn the key and just pray. I'm not even religious, but I was bargaining with the universe. Please start, just one more day. Because I knew, deep down, that if that check engine light came on, it was game over. I couldn't afford a mechanic. If the car died, I couldn't get to work. If I couldn't get to work, I lost the job. If I lost the job, I lost the apartment. That is a terrifying way to live. You are fragile. But then, you save the 10,000. And suddenly, the sociopathic detachment from disaster kicks in. It's weird, actually. A few years ago, after I'd finally scraped together that $10,000 buffer, that same car finally died. Smoke, rattling, the whole thing. Dead on the highway. In the old days, I would have been on the side of the road weeping. I would have been having a full-blown panic attack. But this time, I was just annoyed. I was inconveniently late for dinner. That's it. I called a tow truck. I realized it was going to cost $2 grand to fix, and I just mentally deducted it from the number in my bank account. I didn't lose sleep. I didn't have to call my mom and ask for money. I just wrote a check. That is the first massive shift. Money turns life-ruining catastrophes into annoying errands. It buys you your sleep back. But let's get into the good stuff, the math. Because this is where your relationship with money changes from abusive to supportive. When you have less than 10 grand, your money is dead. It's lazy. It sits in your checking account getting eaten alive by inflation. It does nothing for you. But at $10,000, your money wakes up and puts on a suit. Let's look at the numbers. Let's say you take that 10 grand and you put it in a boring, standard S&P 500 index fund. You don't touch it. You don't add another penny to it. You just let it sit there. At an average 8% return, that money earns you $800 in the first year. Now, you might be thinking, Eli, $800? Who cares? That's not a Lambo. But listen to me. That is $800 you did not trade your time for. You were sleeping. You were playing video games. You were sitting on the toilet doom-scrolling TikTok. And while you were doing that, your 10,000 little green employees were out there working a shift, generating $800 of value for you. And it gets crazier the longer you leave it. Let's say you leave that 10 grand alone for 20 years. You forget it exists. In 20 years, that 10,000 becomes $46,000. You didn't do anything, it just grew. Let's say you leave it for 30 years. That 10 grand becomes over $100,000. That is the power of the first 10,000. It's the seed. You cannot grow a forest if you don't plant the first tree. And this is where the mentality shift really happens. Once you see that first $800 of free passive income, something in your brain snaps. In a good way. Before saving 10 grand, I looked at money as something to spend. I'd get a paycheck and I'd immediately think, what can I buy? I deserve a treat. Because I assumed the money would just disappear anyway. That is the poverty mindset. But after 10 grand, you start looking at money as a tool. You start hoarding it. I remember right after I hit my goal, I almost bought this nice watch. It was $600, but I looked at that watch and I didn't see a watch. I saw my capital. I thought, wait, that $600 isn't just cash. That's 600 little soldiers. If I keep them, they'll earn me $50 a year forever. I couldn't buy the watch. I respected the stack too much. Spending the money was firing my employees. That's when you start winning. You start to realize that $10,000 buys you something way more valuable than a car. It buys you leverage. Look, $10,000 isn't enough to retire. You can't just rage quit your job and move to a private island. But with 10 grand in the bank, you stop acting like a hostage. When you have zero savings, you are terrified of losing your job. Your boss can smell that fear. You accept the unpaid overtime because you are desperate for next week's check. But with a $10,000 safety net, you walk differently. You can walk into your boss's office and negotiate for a raise without your voice shaking. You aren't shaking because you know that if things go south, you aren't going to starve next week. You have options. And having options changes your entire energy. But, and this is a big but, there is a trap. A massive, gaping trap that opens up right when you hit 5 figures. The "I'm rich now" delusion. When you're used to having negative $40, $10,000 feels like infinite money. You'll get this urge to celebrate. You'll think, I should go to Tulum. I should put a down payment on a BMW. Do not do that. I am begging you. If you spend the $10,000, you reset the video game back to level 1. You go right back to survival mode. That $10,000 is not spending money. It is infrastructure. It is the concrete foundation of your skyscraper. You don't throw a party on the foundation, you build on it. So how do you get there? Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Saving the first 10 grand is going to suck. It's going to be boring. You have to adopt a wartime mentality. Be ruthless with expenses. You might have to stop drinking those $7 coffees that taste like burnt ambition. You might have to work a second job you hate, but you aren't depriving yourself. You are buying your freedom. Because once you cross that line, the panic stops. The noise in your head quiets down. You stop looking at your feet and you start looking at the horizon. So if you're currently in the trenches, grinding to get to that first 10K, don't give up. It is the hardest part of the journey. Keep stacking. Keep suffering. It's worth it. If you're on the grind, drop a comment below and tell me what you're sacrificing to get there. And if this helped you, smash the like button until it files a restraining order against you. I'm Eli. The system is rigged, so you better learn how to play. I'll see you in the next one.